Good morning, everyone. How are you today? And here I am with my lovely friend Jenny. Good morning, Jenny.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Claire.
This is a little bit like deja vu from last week, isn't it? I haven't seen you for so long, and we did a workshop together yesterday as well. So I think we're going to become a double act, aren't we?
I think so, and it has just been a glorious kind of fortnight, hasn't it? Reflecting on the Maiden Goddesses, because you've got your blog and your vlog, and I've got the podcast, and it just seems to be maidens.
And we just run in sync, don't we? We just completely run in sync. I'm just checking we're live on here. I'm sure we are. But yeah, it's and we just work in complete synchronicity a lot of the time, don't we? Which is just amazing. I don't know if it's amazing for everybody else, but it is for us. So
I think it's quite amazing.
We think it's amazing. So let me just check. We are live. Oh no, yes, we're on here. So anyway, we are here. So I'm going to do my little weather report because today's quite exciting. How British is that? Every time I open up, look, my hair's curly one side and flat the other. How strange is that? Random. Every time I go, and the weather today is, and I just can't help it. How British is it to talk about the weather? But today we have snow. It's actually snowing as I speak. Yes, still snowing. We have white roofs opposite. So I'm quite excited about that. So Jenny and myself, well, I think we could become the pagan French and Saunders, actually.
I think so. I'm definitely Dawn French. Can I put dibs on her?
You could be Dawn French, yeah.
Thank you.
I could be Jennifer Saunders. I'm tall. You're short.
Give you a blonde job. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What do you reckon? I reckon we could. And we were joking last night. We're going to write to the BBC and ask if we can do pagan watch instead of winter watch and spring watch near all the Sabbats. So if you see me and Jen pop up on your TV, they'll probably have younger people than us, Jen.
No, Keeley and Laddington. Got the theme tune and everything.
Oh, way too much for people. Anyway, so today we are talking about the Maiden Goddess. Now, we did a workshop on this yesterday, didn't we? At our friend's summit that she's been doing online. So, but we're going to talk to you about the Maiden Goddess today because obviously Imbolc was last week. Imbolc. Our lovely friend Punk's Tawny Phil at, where was he? He was at Gobbler's Knob, Jen, wasn't he?
Gobbler's Knob, and I was completely unprepared again for you to raise it.
Do you know, I saw a thing on Facebook and there was people sitting there under this sign that said Gobbler's Knob and they were talking about Punksy Phil, as they call him, and I just thought, yeah, see, I didn't make it up, it's real. It is a real place. I've got no strange places to say to you today. Anyway, so the Maiden Goddess, as we know, is associated with spring, and the return of the goddess. Oh, voices go. That can't happen. Associated with Imbolc. So, in the old traditions, you've got the Maiden Goddess, Mother Goddess, and the crone, and that's a Hellenic one as well, isn't it? That was the triple goddess. That was common in.
Yeah, there is some debate about that as to whether it is Maiden, Mother, Crone. I know, I think I was in Bath and I was looking at a triple goddess, and I read there that there was a suggestion, rather than it being three faces, it was just like amplification. So like goddess. So there are some schools and thought, but I think that we are all kind of tuned into those archetypes of Mother, Maiden, Crone. And I think from a fertility point of view, they would have been things that were really important to our ancestors.
Yeah, and as you know, obviously the maiden is the younger woman, the mother, you know, the in the middle, and the crown towards the end of the life, and that's based around the fertility cycle, isn't it? So, and I suppose that would have been similar sort of ages to now. And I think we started to, if I remember rightly, girls are starting to have periods younger than they used to, aren't they now? Or have I made that up? I haven't made that up.
No, you've not made that up. They do wonder if there's something to do with that, is that we have better nutrition and better health, but also the suggestion about birth control in the water. and the hormones might be bringing that in. So that's quite an interesting thought.
Not too much of that in pagan Celtic Britain or ancient Rome or Greece, I'm guessing.
No, not so much.
Not so much. Not so much contraceptive pill in your water. Well, there you go. You heard it here first. I didn't know that. That's quite worrying, actually. Anyway, so we've got the traditional triple goddess, and that's the Wiccan structure as well, isn't it, of Maiden, Mother, Crone. But more recently, post-feminist eruption of the 60s and 70s, particularly the Avalonian tradition, which obviously was reimagined and reworked, I guess. I mean, these are all suppositions, aren't they? They're all what people have thought. I mean, we this isn't necessarily fact. It's just what people think, what people believe. But they added the lover archetype because, as we said the other week, you don't necessarily go straight from maiden to mother. Some do, some don't. But there is obviously that as women discovered their bodies and found and had more autonomy of their body, the lover archetype tends to be much more popular of recent times, isn't it? And also they added the queen crone. There's people in some school have thought that there's a queen crone where you're, I think I'm a queen crone, a queen archetype, and I think I might be approaching the queeniness at nearly 50. Yeah, I think I could have a crown and be queen. I'd be quite happy with that. So what's your thoughts on queens?
I love it. I know it doesn't resonate with everybody, and if it doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. You know, it's not that I'm adverse to wanting to be a crone, but I don't feel like I'm there yet.
Yes.
And you know, I've just kind of sidestepped out of well, I think I'm perimenopause. Sorry guys if you're listening. I think I'm perimenopause sort of thing. Every now and then I'll get surprise. But yeah, I'm still young, I'm still vital. My kids, like your kids, have grown up sort of thing. So I have a real autonomy now. And that's what the queen stage means to me. Being in your power, being in your autonomy. And I can do all these weird things. I can start a podcast. I can go on camps with Claire and plan all these things because I haven't got all of those other things that kept me busy when I was mother.
It's almost like going back to being a maiden again, isn't it? Because it's still like you've still got the energy and the va-va-voom to go and do things before things really start falling off, dropping off, falling out, whatever. But you've got more confidence to go, do you know what, like you say, start a podcast. You and Hazel went, I'm going to start a podcast. And that's part of the, if you look at a younger person, younger woman or a younger man, it's not until the teenage years, and I know you'll bear this out with your guides, that people start thinking, I can't do this, I don't know how to do it, but they're full of confidence, and self-confidence and freedom is one of the attributes of the maiden. And when you look at it like that, I know you'll tell me about your guides that there comes an age where they stop being full of confidence, isn't there?
Yeah.
And being full of love for themselves.
It's between 11 and 13, you know, working with young people, between 11 and 13. At 11, a girl can tell you all the things that are unique and remarkable and special and makes them them. They get to 13 and something happens. I don't know if it's society kicking in, I don't know if it's hormones kicking in, but something definitely happens where they are told and they hear, nice girls don't. Nice girls don't brag about themselves. Nice girls don't boast. Nice girls don't make themselves the centre of attention. And it's heartbreaking.
It's really strange because even not so much now, but it took me a long time to regain that maiden sort of self-confidence and freedom of being, actually, do you know, it's okay to say I'm good at this, or I'm not so bad at this. And you know, it's even now, I mean, we do this in our red tents and our moon circles and things, don't you? Where we have a bragging session where we say what we're good at, and guess what I did this week, and I'm good at this. But I still find it tough. I still find it and we had one, I think we were at my house, I don't know if you were there, a moon circle, and we sat there, grown women, and we we really, it was, what was it, a boasting session we had? I think you were there.
I
think
was
come
there.
up. Yeah.
And I think I'd said about my practice. Well, it's not even my practice. I borrowed it from heathen friends.
Good.
Of posts and boasts.
That's
and
it.
The first time you get a gaggle of middle-aged women bragging about themselves, it is painful. It's like, I can make quite a nice Victoria sponge, but after a couple of rounds of it, you get good quick.
And that's the freedom, that, you know, the freedom, and we've got other things weighing us down, haven't we? And youth, I mean, there's a quote in there, youth is wasted on the young, and I'd love to have the physical body I had as a youth, not necessarily to be slimmer or more taut, but to be able to run and to jump, and without things aching and whatnot. And the self-expression of the maidens is to be able to say who they are and what they are, and that's something that diminishes a bit, but that's come back in me now. But I suppose with the maidens, you've got the innocence and the lack of worries as well, haven't you?
Well, I mean, it's interesting you say that. One of my line managers when I was with the youth service had a sign, and I think it's a quote from George Bernard Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get this wrong because I haven't written it down, but it's, we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. And I believe that 100%. And that's why in our circles, we do crafts, we do dance and play games and sing songs, and particularly at In Bulk. You heard in the podcast, didn't you? I said that people complain that I become really annoying, and you know, not one person has backed me up and said, no, of course you don't, darling. I might become a little bit hyper.
I plead fifth. You become full of energy and even more vibrant than normal, Jen.
That's so lovely, thank you.
you know another sort of correspondence to the maiden is activities relating to exploration and discovery, and that is so true as well. This sort of year you've been in for winter, I think, where this year we've been locked down, I think we're all busting to get out there, but creativity as well. And I know we were very creative at our last meeting, weren't we? We made some beautiful bunting, and we actually made panty bunting, and we made Knickerbocker Glories, didn't we? And that was that was to do with Brighid. Now I'm going to talk to you about Brighid in a minute. Jen's going to talk about Hebe and Persephone, but it's to do with creativity and all that energy of finding things out and exploring things. And you know, quite often you don't have time as you grow up, do you? All your childish and your youthful activities and the things you used to enjoy sort of go out the window, don't they?
Yeah, and you know, I have a theory about this, and this is a completely random thought, but you know, like slimming clubs.
Slimming clubs.
I think slimming clubs are so popular because it gives, you know, women a couple of hours out, away from their kids, away from their partners, to sit and talk about not eating donuts. And I don't think it's the not eating donuts that is the important bit. It's that being in a circle and having the time to just be without your otherworldly concerns. And as maidens, that's what we don't have, is it? You know, you're not worrying about getting tea on the table. You know, your biggest concerns is if you've fallen out with somebody, and that can be over and done within, you know, like a day, and getting your homework done, and you know, making sure that you have watched the latest TV program so you can talk about it the next day at school.
I was just thinking, my biggest as a teenager, as the maiden, my biggest sort of concerns were getting my homework done, what was for tea, what time tea was, how I could get out of washing up, possibly. Was it my turn or my brother's turn? And it was what, so it was like, gonna, you know, age myself here, but moonlighting all the young ones, and moonlighting, I think it was on a Friday, and we used to have to rush in Monday and talk about will they, won't they, will they, won't they. It was that, you know, that sort of thing. And you know, sitting there, you know, would the TV be free at the top of the pops, or would Dad be wanting to watch something, you know, that kind of thing. And that kind of, when we talk about innocence and freedom and lack of worries, that's what we're referring to, aren't we? And of course it's beauty and youth, and all those things. And it's the newness, isn't it? The newness of creation and everything like that. You know, you think of youthful people full of energy. I mean, I'd love to have some of the energy I used to have then. I don't know about you. I mean, you know, I'm glad I don't have to run for a bus, because I think they'd be scooping me on it on a stretcher. But, you know, it's so they're the things associated with the Maiden. Anything else you could think of associated with the Maiden that I haven't mentioned?
Also, I think you've got the Maiden as a very young child, kind of a 5-year-old, and that Maiden when she's cusping. So when you get into 12, 13,
Maiden.
Cusping Maiden.
Cusping
Maiden. Also, that's quite an exciting time, isn't it? But also, I think it's a time where you learn maybe that the world can be a bit of a dangerous place.
Oh, I was a moody cusping Maiden. I was a right moody mare. Honestly, I used to stomp up the stairs and slam doors. I didn't dare argue, but I was a bit of a, I was a moody mare. I put my hands up to it. Sorry, Mum.
But it is, again, it's that finding your autonomy, because I think when you're a young girl, you're kind of living under the rule of your parents, sort of thing, and hopefully that was quite fun for all of us. Not always the case, but then you start going. Do you remember going into town for the first time? I've got this real memory of. Do you remember the what were the leggings with the things at the bottom of the feet? Joppers. I had jopper
the straps underneath,
that would go over your boots, and I had this bat wing jumper. So I had this outfit in red, and my best friend at the time was a girl called Jennifer Collicott, and she had exactly the same outfit in green, and we would go into town together thinking we were the ladies of creation, and we would go into like
You
and have a hot chocolate, and they used to do like these donuts. So we'd go in and we'd hang out in Burger King in town, you know, scoping out the boys. And we did. And we just thought we were all that and a bag of crisps.
Yeah, we had I had some more awful fashion faux pas than that. Rah-rah skirts. Rah-rah skirts, puffball skirts, don't even get me on them. Batwing, we definitely had batwing, but we had some, you know, you'd got this outfit and you'd like you say, off you'd trot into town, and you'd think you were the absolute nuts, didn't you? But you were, and you see them, and you can see them now, and going into town on your own. And when I got bigger, I mean, I don't know, we used to catch the train from Maidstone to Margate, and you'd get your Dreamland ticket in. For those of you who aren't local, Dreamland was like a big fun fair, and I think it's got Britain's oldest wooden roller coaster was there. I've taken it apart, I've dismantled it and sold bits of it off in blocks of wood. But it was Dreamland, and I think it was something like £6 for the ticket, you know, and your mum would give you the £6, and that included it, you know. And there was a group of us, and we were only about 13 or 14, and whether I'd have let Soph and Dan go, I don't know, but it was so big to be able to be out for the day. And this is before mobile phones, but you just, you know, you had to catch that last train home, otherwise you'd have to put your 10p in the phone, what's going, Mum, I've missed the train, you know, you'd get a right rollicking. It was just amazing. But we got Gigi's saying bits are dropping off though. And she says being a crone is great. Well, you rock being a crone, Gig, to be fair. I aspire to be a crone like Gig. Oh, West Ham is in the house. That's my husband. He's just come back from shopping. So he's probably going, oh, who's she chatting to now? And Mark Creed, morning Mark, all the way from Derbyshire, is saying he loves a Knickerbocker Glory and good morning goddesses. Well, we'll take good morning goddesses. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. So, obviously a bit of reminiscence there. There's something fun, isn't there, about catching up with your schoolmates as well and saying, oh, do you remember when we did this? And it was slightly daring, wasn't it? The first one to kiss a boy, first one to have a boyfriend, all that kind of thing. So I think we leave our memories there before they get a bit rude. Not that any of mine are. But so of the maiden goddesses, I mean, there are lots and lots, and some of them sort of, you can see them as maiden and as older goddesses as well. But there are some of the ones I've got written down are Roman. I've got Venus, Flora and Hestia. Greek is Persephone, Artemis and Hebe. Celtic is Rhiannon and Bridget. Brighid, we'll get onto her later on. Nordic, Freya and Inden is particularly calling me. I don't know anything about her, but I said that to you the other day. Her name just, something makes you want to be curious, and I think this is a time to be curious as well. Egyptian, there's Nut, and she's the lady that stands, she's doing basically a downward dog, I think, in the sky, and you see her. She's a creatrix as well. Parvati from the Indian or Hindu Vedic culture, and Ocean, an African goddess who's got nothing to do with the water at all, but she's got a lovely watery name, hasn't she? So there's some of the ones that if you were interested in the Maiden, you could find out about more, look up. So Jen, you're going to talk to us about Persephone and Hebe, aren't you? Because they're two of your, do you call them matrons or madrons? What do you call them?
I call them matrons.
Matrons, okay. So let's hear about Hebe and Persephone from you.
Right, so Hebe, I had an interesting journey with Hebe, sort of thing. So when I first started exploring a pagan path, I got my statuary, and I just got the first kind of thing I could find on eBay. And I've spoken about her before, but I got my generic garden centre goddess, and she's got a jug in one hand and she's got her bowl in the other, and her job is she's the cupbearer to the Olympians. So we think of that as being quite a minor role, but it really wasn't, because you were in the middle of every big meeting. You were there giving out your ambrosia, so you had the ear of everybody. Now, Hebe does grow up and gets married, and then she gets replaced by a youth called Ganymede. But in her maiden aspect, she always comes to me as a very young girl. So she's kind of 5 or 6 years old. And when I first sort of took over facilitating Kent Goddess Group, for Imbolg, we did an embodiment, and for anybody who doesn't know what embodiment is, it's basically becoming flesh suit for goddess. So it's not like being an oracle for goddess where you just speak her words. You invite goddess in and you embody her. So I spent a lot of time, meditating and connecting with Hebe and finding out what she wanted that day. So that day we played board games, and she wanted me to wear green leggings and a white blouse, like floaty peasanty blouse, and it didn't suit my body type. It was, you could see my tummy. I felt a bit ridiculous. I like to wear sensible roomy clothing, and she was just sitting there with me, and she's going, why do you care? Why do you care, you lumpy bits of showing? You look like a snowdrop. How fantastic is it? You've got a green stem and you've got white petals. You look like a snowdrop. And it was like, yeah. And, when she was talking and chatting away with me, she was just completely rolling her eyes about having to draw baths for her brothers in Olympus and get her mother's chariot, set up, sort of thing. So Hebe doesn't really, for me, have much in the way of responsibilities, and those ones that she does have, she does moan a little bit and roll her eyes. So that's Hebe for me. And Persephone, obviously she's got these two aspects. She is, as Persephone, an underworld queen. And as Kor, as Maiden, her other name, she is the daughter of Demeter, and it's her abduction by Hades and her mother going into mourning which gives us our seasons.
Yes.
So now Demeter and Persephone have been a part of my life since I was a child. I can remember sitting on my granddad's lap, eating a pomegranate, and we'd pick the seeds out, and he would tell me their stories, and that has been such a part of my life, sort of thing. And he'd tell me the stories of the seasons and stuff, and it really does connect me with my granddad, because Christmas, when I was a young person, was the only time you could get a pomegranate. You couldn't get it all year round. So it was
right.
special. You cut it in half and there were jewels inside it. So it was an amazing thing to live through. And as I've grown older, I've found myself seasonally dipping around the autumn time. And that's when I feel that I psychologically descend.
Okay.
The beauty of this dual aspect to Persephone is that she always returns in the spring. And
I suppose a lot of people can associate with that.
you know, if you've got something like seasonal affective disorder, you know that lack of light and the world kind of being in that darkness and stagnation is really difficult. And I did, if you will indulge me, write a little poem about this.
Hold yourself.
So, bear with me as I just call it up.
I've got a lovely image of you as a snowdrop, Jen.
I bet you have.
It's a lovely, and you love snowdrops too, don't you?
I really do love snowdrops. So this was written in 2017 for National Poetry Writing Month. And it's called Spring Always Comes. Dear mother, cast off your cloak of mourning. Widow's weeds are unnecessary when your daughter is married to death. Naive I was, but now astute at contract law. You know I return in the spring. Dear mother, the meadows are rioting with colour. You can feel the blossoms taking their shape. And glaring at the narcissus is uncalled for. You know I return in the spring. Dear mother, let the seed propagate, for yours is the power. Secure the fecundity of the land. You gave them the knowledge of the planting of grain for a reason. You know I return in the spring. Dear mother, I know you're mistrustful of gods who bargain away their daughters, but be not dread Demeter. Our love is eternal, perpetual, cyclical, and you know I return in the spring. And for me, that poem is about that cyclical nature that people who walk pagan paths quite often connect with. So we know that we can have a resurgence in the springtime. I think, Persephone is very much a goddess who does become autonomous and a queen, but she can return annually to her maiden status. So that's why she resonates, I think, with me.
That's a lovely poem. You wrote that yourself, didn't you? And I love the idea of that. I think we all, like you say, particularly on the pagan path, we all associate very much with the Sabbats during the year, or even if we don't all observe them, but we follow the pattern of the seasons as they change and the wheel of the year. And I know I'm far more aware of what is going on outside since I've started following my path, and sort of I've realized I've noticed more, and I look for signs more, and I don't know if it's a human nature thing just to look for signs of change and seasons coming for reassurance, or especially in like times like we've got now, but very much I look for the signs of the autumn, and I can throw myself into autumn and winter knowing that spring and summer will come, and I don't dread them. I don't dread the darkness. I embrace it and go with it, knowing that it's just part of the wheel and it just keeps turning, and it's going to be okay. So I do understand definitely what you're saying there. And I love that going back to being a maiden again, and it's interesting that kind of leads on to me with Brighid, because as I spoke about the Cailleach the other week, in some stories, and they're not, a lot of these are just stories and people have perhaps written it, and there's not necessarily trying to find any real fact for a lot of these things is difficult, and they are people's imaginings, aren't they?
Well, another thing that I read recently was it's likely that there wasn't a Kaliak,
Yeah.
but Kaliak was a title given to several local goddesses, sort of thing. So this idea that we get lots of different stories isn't really surprising, I don't think.
No, and it's something that always interests me is that you get the same sort of goddesses for the same things in all cultures, and you get gods for the same things in all cultures. And it's quite often anything creativity, and obviously it's because of the woman's womb and the giving birth. But wherever you go, whether you go to the Aztecs, the indigenous American people, if you go to India, if you go to Africa, Egypt, Rome, Greece, or Rome is not a country, Claire. This time I've forgotten what a baby lamb is this time, a baby sheep. Italy, it would have been the Roman Empire, I guess. You've got the same kind of goddesses and gods spring up everywhere. And the Kaliak, when I was researching that, there was different names in particularly the Celtic, what would have been the Celtic lands of Scotland and Ireland and Isle of Man and all the rest of it. But they've got very similar ideas, and it can't be coincidence. It cannot be coincidence at all, can it?
And there was lots of connections with the weather, wasn't there? And one of the one of the names for the Kaliak that I thought was absolutely beautifully optimistic was Gentle Annie. Did you come across that one?
I did come across like that was from a fishing thing, but I know I was like, I'm not so sure she was gentle. That was the fisher folk of some Scottish coast referred to her as Gentle Annie, and I'm like, well, maybe she was full of love for them. But so if I were to talk to you a bit about Bridget, Breed, Bridie, Bridget, there's so many names. I think I read that Wikipedia, I know Wikipedia is not the be all and end all, lists 41 different names. So I'm just going to call her Bridie because that's the name I like. So I'm just going to go for Bridie because there are literally so many, and lots of them are really difficult to pronounce because they're Old Irish and Gaelic. And it's supposed to mean the high one, or the exalted one. So that sort of puts her in the position of where she is. But there's also, I read some school of thought that it was a title rather than a name. So like you said about the Kaliak being a title and a type of goddess, there are so many Brides, Bridgets, Brigantias, all the rest of it, Breed, Bride. It was a title as opposed to a specific goddess, which again makes sense, doesn't it?
Mm.
So in mythology, she was the daughter of the Dagda, who was an important god in Irish mythology. He's like a father figure, druidy, associated with fertility, agriculture, weather, magic and druidry. And excuse me, he's supposed to have been a big guy with a beard and been likened to Odin, apparently. I don't know how Odin feels about that. So Bridie had a husband called Brez and a son called Ruadan. And unfortunately, Ruadan in several stories died. And this is where she, mourning him, and this is something that really, I didn't know this until I was researching to talk a bit about it today, although she's definitely one of my girls. She's supposed to have started the tradition of keening. So for those of you that don't know what keening is, it's something that I didn't know about till I started my celebrancy course last year. But keening is a wailing and lamenting at a wake or a funeral, and it's still relatively common in or was common until quite recently in Ireland. And they used to get professional wailers, and you also used to get professional wailers. I've seen pictures of it in ancient Egypt and some of the ancient places where women would come and wail at the coffin or the coffin procession, these laments. And I suppose there's sacred songs of passing over. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that she was one of the origins potentially of keening. So that was something that really sparked my interest. And talking of sparks, when she was born, there's supposed to have been this massive tower of fire whoosh up to the heavens from a house so that it looked like the house was on fire, but it wasn't. So that's obviously her association with fire that I shall come to in a minute. She was talked about by the monks. I think it's Cormac something. It's not biography, might be glossary. That's a strange word, but I'm sure it's Cormac's glossary. That they wrote about her as being a goddess of poetry, and also having two sisters also called Bridget. There's Bridget the healer and Bridget the what was the other Bridget? Bridget the healer and can't remember the smith, the forge. So she was obviously very important, and there's sort of a connection with her and the Celtic goddess Brigantia, which of course they think Britain is named after, don't they?
It's where we get the word brigand for.
It's where we get the word brigand, which were soldiers, weren't they? Originally, yeah. They were soldiers. And of course, you've got the Brigantes, who were a tribe. Gigi, if you're still watching, must know about the Brigantes tribe. I'm sure it was Northumberland. It was up towards Scotland. And also, the Hebrides literally mean the islands of Brighid or Bridget.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that till I was looking it up. And that's where one of the origins of about being the mother of Christ, or sorry, the foster mother of Christ, sort of blending the Christian and pagan traditions. And was it you and I talked about the other day, in Celtic society, foster parents were really well thought of, more highly perhaps than your actual parents. It was a real honour to be a foster parent. So that, and because Iona, that's one of the Hebridean islands, isn't it? I'm sure it's Iona, where they've got the little beehive things like that. Is that Iona? And St. Columb?
It could be.
St. Columb. Anyway, that's one of the reasons that the what do you call it? They said she was the foster mother of Christ because her mantle wrapped him when he was born. So what she was doing out in Jerusalem, I don't quite know, but obviously she's a well-travelled lady. So yeah, I think the Hebrides means Island of the Bride, Island of Bridie or Brigid, and there's a well of eternal youth there. And apparently she went there on summer solstice and blessed the waters. So now you can go there for healing or for renewal, which is rather nice. I fancy that. I've always loved the name Iona. I don't know why. I've always wanted to go there. I don't know what's there. Gigi, you must know. Are you still watching? Because Gigi knows many, many things, doesn't she? So things associated with Bridie, Bridget, is wisdom. Not unlike the Greek muses, she also watched over music and poetry. Healing was a big one for her. So you've got the springs, holy wells, there's many of them sacred to Bridget, and many of those are still now dressed, particularly in Ireland. And there's a lot in Derbyshire. Mark, if you're watching, because you're from Derbyshire, I know when, as in Mark Creed, not my husband Mark, but we went to Derbyshire, and that was around June, I think. We actually went to go and see, who did we go and see? We went and saw the Charlatans, and they were playing at Man City Stadium, and we stayed with my cousin. And on the way back, we came through Derbyshire, and there were still wells and church dressings being done, and that's flowers and greenery sort of round the head of the well, which is said to be healing. And that's where you get the clootie trees from, that people were tying up rags to offer their blessings to Bridget Breed and to get wishes for the sick to be healed. So as well as that, we've got the Bridie doll that, I know you've certainly made a Bridie doll, haven't you?
Yeah,
we talked about that last week at Imalt, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's, I mean, in some places in Ireland, they still do it. They make a really big one and they sing sacred songs to her, and the head of the household invites her in, and that's protection for the household for the coming year. And they'll offer her milk and bread and light a candle, and sometimes make clothes for her and leave food as though she was a real person. And obviously one of her other things she's really known for is blacksmithing and forge. So and I think we've perhaps forgotten the importance of a fire. And in, up until quite recently, every house would have had a fireplace, and it would have been a really special place, wouldn't it, where you gathered, you told stories, and it would have been essential in the house, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and it would have been the centre of the home.
Yeah,
and it's probably where your household shrines would have been.
exactly.
And again, I think now that we have 24/7 lighting and heating, that kind of importance of it, and I think it's quite interesting that a lot of the goddesses of the hearth, you know, like Hestia and Vesta, quite often they were perceived as virgin goddesses. So whether that was the role of the daughter in a family to tend a hearth, or, you know, that association with maidenhood as being something that's very important to this time of year, because you've done some research into that, hadn't you?
I had, yeah, and that was not that it was they refer to these people as maidens, but it's not necessarily about sexual virginity. It's about autonomy and being free to make their own choices, which is something that kind of got a little bit lost along the way, didn't it? It was you know, I suppose where patriarchy and Christianity took over, that, you know, women were chattels and women were married off. They were the property of their husbands. They were the property of their fathers until such time, weren't they? Which is, you know, really quite sad, isn't it? And it makes me quite angry. I'm sure my dad would have looked after me very, very nicely, because he's a lovely, lovely man. But and my husband's lovely too. But, you know, and yeah, I don't think he'd dare to. Neither of them would dare to do that these days. But yeah, I know when we talked, I think as I was talking to you on your podcast, I mean, they think round the fire is where people learn to talk, because their communication, rather than beyond nodding or, you know, basic sounds, was that you know, that's where people sort of, where they were sat, they learned to talk, and their speech evolved, didn't they? Do you remember me saying that?
Yeah, no, I remember you saying that.
Okay, hang on. Gigi is saying Iona is a mainly Christian sanctuary, but there was probably some pagan association before that. And Britain was named after the Pryderi, the Brigantes were Yorkshire, possibly up to Northumberland. Okay, and Mark Creed is saying, yeah, there's lots of well dressings in Derbyshire. So we weren't far off the trip. We're not completely making it up. We do have a bit of a clue of what we're on about. So that's a bit about Bridget. And of course, she's also interestingly domesticated animals. She covers one of her goddessing skills, and midwife, and frames protective care, particularly of women, and that would come under the midwife section as well. The keeper of dreams and prophecy, which I hadn't heard of before, and creativity. And I suppose with the, you know, if anybody's ever watched any blacksmith work, it's very intricate. It's not a case of poke it in the fire, and it is a real magic and alchemy, isn't it? Making something from the solid to the
interesting. The last couple of Mercians that I've been to, which is like a pagan camp, I've watched friends make something at the forges, and I've thought, do I fancy that? And then I've sat and watched the friends do it first and realised it's really hard.
Really hot.
And, you know, with my epilepsy and my seizures and my jerks and stuff, I'm not sure I want to have a go at it. But my friend Vicky, the first year, she made a really beautiful poker with a barleycorn twist and an oak leaf. And last year Hazel made a troll knot.
Oh, okay. I would like to have a go. And, you know, it must have been, they were a pretty important part of the community. So for Bridget to be the goddess of that would be a mark of the esteem for her, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I think with your smiths, it wasn't unheard of to hobble your smith so that they could still work the forge, but they couldn't go anywhere.
That sounds grim.
A little bit grim.
Yeah, well, I should just leave the blacksmithing on a slightly lovelier note than that. Thank you, Jenny. Was that obviously in a lot of folklore and mythology, it's the dwarves who are magical creatures that do all the forging and all the rest of it, isn't it? So that's again talking about its magical powers. Now I've got a poem. I didn't write this. I found this, so I'm gonna have to read this. You have to excuse me reading this. I found it online, and it's called Bridget Bright by Hedwitch. And I found it on a page, which I'm happy to put the link up, but it's not my poem. It's Bridget Bright. She's known as Bridget Bright, goddess who shines against the night. At Keldara, at the setting sun, her sacred flame is kept by one. 19 times the earth turns round, the sacred springs come forth the ground. 20 times the sun has burned, and now the goddess has returned. Alone she tends her thrice bright flame, born of her heart that bears her name. The Dagda knows Brighid as daughter, triple blessed by fire and water. Poets call her name to inspire, and healers oft gain from her fire. Wayland too would know her well, as hammer and anvil ring like a bell. A sorrowful cry did she give meaning, when first she brought to era keening. O sacred fire against darkest night, burn for Brighid bright. Fire in the head to quicken us, fire in the cauldron to heal us, fire in the forge of the heart to temper us. And I really like that, and that's got reference to Wayland is Wayland Smithy, I'm assuming, who was a mythical blacksmith to various people, one of them being Odin, I think. And that Wayland Smithy's on my list of places to go. And I love this little poem because it's by Hedgewitch, and it was on www.witchvox.com if you want to go and look that up. So thank you for that, Hedgewitch. I have acknowledged you. So,
do you know what the 19 suns refers to?
The 19 candles is the 19, you know, like the Vestal Virgins?
Yeah.
I think at Kildare, which is where St Bridget of Kildare is, there's supposed to be 19 nuns tending her sacred flame.
Oh, okay.
So that's, yeah, and that's obviously that's a parallel with the Vestal Virgins, who weren't necessarily virgins because they did have sex. Virgin and was sometimes it's a woman who's not married. And again, it's this woman of autonomy, and we've chosen to use the term unmarried, or it's transmuted into virgin from being an unmarried autonomous woman who has not had sex to being somebody who hasn't had sex. And the maidens as well, like we said, maiden and virgin kind of go hand in hand. They don't necessarily mean now what they meant then. So we've got a little meditation if you want to do it. It's about 10 minutes. Did you want to add anything else, Jenny, before I?
No, let's go into the meditation.
So I'm just going to tinker and do some magic here and hope it works and hope I tick the right buttons. Jenny's going to talk to you and keep you amused until then. If you hear swearing, I'm sorry, but we'll just do this little meditation. And if you want to join in, that's great. If you don't, if you want to toddle off and get on with your day, that's great too. But yeah, so apparently Dreamland has still got the wooden roller coaster. Natasha said. Natasha's here. Morning, Natasha. So yeah, and Wayland was hamstrung. Oh, so you said hobbled?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds vicious, Gidge. Gidge, that's proper vicious, isn't it? I didn't know that. I don't want to be a blacksmith now. I don't want that.
Maybe just a little part-time, and maybe we'll just tie your shoelaces together.
Okay, I can deal with that. Right. Let me just sort this out, and let me just.
And I shall sit here and be witty and diverting.
Yes, you sit there and be witty and diverting. And now I can't find what I want to find, but it's fine. You just be witty and diverting. Tell us a tale of something, Jen.
Well, I mean, I'm podcasting, or later today that will go out live. And we were kind of talking about inspiration, because that's another thing that Brighid is known for, isn't it? About and I've got something to check out. We were doing a meditation yesterday, and I've got to check out the Cauldron of Posy. So if anybody has any information about the Cauldron of Posy, stick it in the comments, and then I will go and look it up.
But Cauldron of Posy.
Cauldron of Posy. I got it through as a bit of a download. So I'm going to I'm sure it will have something to do with Brighid. But the Cauldron of Posy is something I'm going to have to go and look up. But yeah, sorry?
Flowers, I'm thinking.
No, I don't think it's a floral posy. I think it refers to poetry.
Oh, okay.
That kind of posy sort of thing. But I, don't know what it's about. So I'm going to have to go away and do some reading. But it's just the thought to what does inspire you at the moment. So I think we live in an amazing times where we've never had so much access to information.
Definitely. Well, I think I'm ready to do this now. So I won't turn myself to mute. I should just be very quiet. Okay. So welcome to our Walking with the Maiden meditation. I haven't clicked the right thing. I haven't clicked the thing that says. I know what I haven't done. I have clicked the sound thing. So you should be able to hear it because we tinkered with this earlier, didn't we? So here we go. Walking with the Maiden meditation. Make sure you're comfortable, whether that is lying down or sitting. Relax your body and bring your attention to within yourself. Listen and become aware of your breath. Breathe deeply in and out, in and out. Now relax your head and your neck. Relax your arms and your chest. Relax your back and your stomach. Relax your legs and your feet. Imagine that you are walking in a familiar place, somewhere that you love. And as you walk along this path, you come to a gate in a wall that you have never noticed before. You push the gate, and to your surprise it opens into a beautiful meadow. Intrigued, you walk through the gate. You hear the birdsong above you, and you notice small animals running through the grass. The flowers are swaying gently in the slight breeze. It feels familiar, as though you have been here before. The sun is beginning to set, and you are aware of the silvery crescent moon rising slowly. You hear melodious laughter carried on the breeze. And as you turn in the direction of that laughter, a movement catches your eye in the distance. As you watch, the figure draws closer. It is a young woman running through the meadow towards you. Her arms are outstretched as she trails her fingers through the long green grass and the sweet smelling meadow flowers. She looks up at you and she smiles, and you know she is calling you to join her as she runs wild and free. You can sense the excitement and feel the adventure in the air, and you throw yourself into this moment and you run towards her, feeling the air brush against your face and the grass against your body. In the distance, the crescent moon slowly rises higher into the sky, and as you meet her, you know you have met the Maiden Goddess. She catches your hand and laughs as you run together through the meadow. Birds are singing sweetly over your head. Butterflies of many colours flutter before you, and you feel the powerful energy of the maiden. You feel the wonder of the world around you and the joy of this moment and the freedom to explore the path that is now unfolding. You know it is your time to enjoy this moment with the Maiden Goddess. And now, slowly, as the images begin to fade, you notice that the sun has set and the bright crescent moon is high in the sky. It's time to say goodbye to the maiden for now. But you know you can come back here at any time to meet with her. She is now awakened within you, and you can call to her whenever you wish. Slowly think about your breathing again. Feel your breath. Hear the familiar sounds as they return to you. Start to wiggle your toes. Stretch your legs. Flex your fingers. And feel yourself return fully to your body, feeling alive, inspired, and know that you have walked with the Maiden Goddess, and her energy and love will stay with you for as long as you wish. Gently ease yourself back into your day. Be sure to drink some water and have a small snack whilst you make this transition. Blessed be. So, hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you haven't gone off to sleep. I think we've lost Jenny. She's gone off to sleep, bless her. So I think that's about us for today. We've got, thanks for your comments there, Gigi, about the Cauldron of Posy. I know Jen will look forward to finding out about that. So that's about us for today. Next week I have got a lovely, oh, she's back, she's made it. Did you run to the loo? So Gigi's put in some comments about the Cauldron of Posy being in the Mabinogion.
Yes, I'm going to check that out. I think.
Thanks for that, Gigi. And yes, I think that's us for today, really, isn't it? We're going to get back to our summit and go and do that.
Yep, but thank you for toddling along and listening to us, you know, natter away. It's always nice to know it's not just us talking to ourselves.
Well, it might be. They're probably still all in their meditation, bless them. So next week I've got a lovely lady called Anita talking to us about Chinese astrology.
I'm really excited for this one because other than knowing that I'm a wood rabbit, that's the sum total of my Chinese astrology knowledge.
You might not even just be that, because she's done my charts and she's going to tell you all about me, which is quite a worry. So we've got Anita next week with Chinese astrology, and then the following week we're having a break because I shall be recovering from a little operation, and then after that, at the end of the month, we've got Laura, lovely Laura's doing yoga with us. So that's what we've got coming up, and then into March, I've actually got a man coming to talk to us. A man. Yes. The goddess is going to have a chat with a man about the gods, because I know not much about the gods. And when we were doing our summit yesterday, I got chatting to a lovely chap who he came to, oh, sorry, bless you, Lola, did you sneeze? That's my cat, by the way. I don't have a small child in the corner, it's a cat. And he came along to our Awakening the Maiden workshop. Then he said he'd try and awaken his youth. So, and I thought, no, let's balance this up a bit, and it reminded me that I was going to ask Tone to come and talk to us. So that will be happening in March. So unless there's any more comments, and I think we've sent them all off to sleep, Jen. Yeah. Although she's saying it's proper vicious. Well, she said Waylon was hamstrung, and yeah, it's proper vicious. So we'll leave you with that, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining me, Jenny. It's always lovely to have you with me.
Always a pleasure and never a chore.
Always a pleasure and never a chore. Oh, it's looking quite snowy out there, and I'm not really just leaving so I can go and play in the snow, but I might be. Anyway, we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.